The Times Square Theatre, aglow in 1935's neon haze, hummed with anticipation as the curtain rose on the chalice of fate. Reginald Vance, Broadway's golden star, raised the ornate chalice, his voice soaring. Then, a gasp. His face contorted, foam flecked his lips, and he crumpled, the chalice clattering. Screams shattered the silence. The orchestra faltered. In the third row, Hercule Poirot's keen eyes caught the panic, the whispers. He deserved it. Poison, swift and deliberate, had struck. Who among the glittering cast hid a killer's heart? The stage was set for a deadly unraveling. The curtain rises on death. The Times Square Theatre, a jewel of New York City's Broadway in the autumn of 1935, stood resplendent under a canopy of electric stars. Its marquee blazed with the promise of the Chalice of Fate, a melodrama that had drawn crowds despite whispers of its faltering fortunes. The evening air was crisp, tinged with the scent of roasted chestnuts from street vendors and the distant hum of taxicabs. Inside, the auditorium buzzed with anticipation. A glittering throng of fur-draped socialites, sharp-suited financiers, and wide-eyed tourists filling the velvet seats. Crystal chandeliers cast a warm glow over the ornate plasterwork, and the heavy crimson curtain loomed like a promise of secrets yet unveiled. Backstage, the atmosphere was less glamorous. The narrow corridors reeked of grease paint and stale cigarette smoke, cluttered with props and coils of rope. Actors darted about, adjusting costumes, their voices a low murmur of nerves and excitement. The orchestra tuned in a discordant symphony, while stagehands barked orders, their boots thudding on the worn floorboards. In the wings, Reginald Vance, the production's dashing lead, stood poised, his tailored medieval doublet accentuating his broad shoulders. His dark hair gleamed under the dim work lights, and his eyes, a piercing blue, held a charisma that had made him the darling of Broadway. Yet tonight, a shadow flickered across his features, a tension unnoticed by the bus, weaving a haunting melody as the curtain rose to reveal a medieval court, its painted backdrop resplendent with turrets and tapestries. Reginald Vance strode center stage, his voice a resonant baritone that carried to the rafters. As King Roderick, he declaimed his love for the fair Lady Eleanor, played by the luminous Lydia Grant, whose auburn curls and sultry gaze had sparked gossip columns for weeks. The scene built to its climax, a toast to eternal devotion, sealed with a sip from an ornate silver chalice, its filigree glinting under the footlights. Vance raised the chalice, his movements theatrical yet precise. To love, eternal and unyielding, he proclaimed, his voice ringing with conviction. The audience leaned forward, enraptured. He pressed the vessel to his lips, took a measured sip, and paused. A flicker of confusion crossed his face. His hand trembled, the chalice wavering. Then, with a strangled gasp, his knees buckled. The prop clattered to the stage, its contents, supposedly colored water, spilling in a dark pool. Vance collapsed, his body convulsing, foam flecking his lips. A scream tore from Lydia Grant, shattering the spell. The orchestra faltered, notes dying in discord. The audience erupted in gasps and cries, some rising to their feet, others frozen in horror. Backstage, chaos erupted. Stagehands rushed forward, shouting for a doctor. The stage manager, a wiry man with a clipboard, bellowed for the curtain to drop. But it jammed halfway, leaving Vance's prone form exposed to the gaping crowd. Lydia knelt beside him, her costume stained with the spilled liquid, her cries mingling with the pandemonium. "Reginald! No, no, please!" she wailed, her hands clutching his limp form. The prop master, a grizzled veteran named Jenkins, pushed through, his face ashen. "It was just water in that chalice, I swear it," he stammered to no one in particular. In the auditorium, Poirot's keen eyes missed nothing. He noted the panic in the wings, the whispered accusations among the crew, the way certain faces, those of the understudy Marcus Hale and Vance's wife, Elena, in the front row, betrayed more than simple shock. Elena, a former at work. Scotland Yard speaks highly of you. Care to lend a hand? This looks like a devil of a case. Poirot inclined his head, his expression one of polite curiosity. Inspector, I am but a humble visitor, yet if my little grey cells may be of service, I shall oblige. Tell me, what do we know of this tragedy? Harlan gestured to Vance's body, now covered with a sheet, but still sprawled beneath the half-lowered curtain. Preliminary look says poison. Arsenic, likely. Found in the chalice. Jenkins swears it was clean before the show. Someone tampered with it. But who? Vance was a star, but stars make enemies. Poirot approached the stage, his patent leather shoes clicking softly on the polished floor. He knelt beside the chalice, careful not to touch it, his eyes tracing its intricate design. A faint scratch marred its rim, barely visible but deliberate. A clue, perhaps, of rough handling or intentional marking. He straightened, his mind racing. The chalice. It was filled when? He asked Jenkins, who hovered nearby, wringing his hands. Just before the act, sir, Jenkins replied. I poured the water myself from a sealed jug. No one touched it after, least not that I saw. Poirot's gaze sharpened. And who had access to the props before the performance? Jenkins hesitated. Well, the stage hands, the actors, the producer Mr. Lang, even Mrs. Vance was backstage earlier, fussing over Reginald's costume. Poirot turned to Harlan. We must secure the scene, Inspector. The chalice, the props, the dressing rooms, all must be examined. And the suspects. Let us begin with those closest to Monsieur Vance. Harlan nodded, barking orders to his men. The theatre, once a haven of illusion, now felt like a gilded cage, its occupants trapped in a web of suspicion. As the investigation began, Poirot's attention drifted to the suspects. Elena Vance, seated now in a corner of the auditorium, was surrounded by sympathetic crew members, yet her grief seemed staged. Her eyes darted too quickly, her sobs too measured. Marcus Hale, the understudy, lingered near the stage, his threatening to take what's his last week. And Lydia Grant? Word is, she and Vance were close. Too close. Poirot nodded, his mind assembling the puzzle. And Monsieur Lang? The producer's fortunes, they are tied to this production, no? Harlan grimaced. Lang's in debt up to his eyeballs. Show was bombing. Vance was the only draw. There's an insurance policy too. Big payout if Vance died. Poirot's moustache twitched. Emotive, perhaps. But we must not leap, Inspector. The truth, it hides in the details. The detective moved to the stage, where Vance's body had been removed by coroner's men, leaving only the chalk outline and the spilled chalice. Poirot crouched again, his gloved hand hovering over the prop. The scratch intrigued him, too precise for an accident, too subtle for a casual mark. Had it been tampered with during the performance, or earlier, in the chaos of preparation? He rose, his gaze sweeping the auditorium, now nearly empty save for the suspects and police. Elena approached, her face a mask of sorrow. Mr. Poirot, you'll find who did this, won't you? Her voice trembled, but her eyes held a calculating glint. Poirot bowed slightly. Madame, rest assured, the truth shall be revealed. But tell me, your husband, he had enemies? Elena's lips tightened. Reginald was magnetic. That drew admiration and resentment. Lydia Grant, for one. She thought she owned him. And Marcus Hale, always lurking, waiting for his chance.
Poirot filed her words away, noting the venom in her tone. He moved to Lydia, who stood defiantly, her arms crossed. "Miss Grant, your grief is palpable, yet I sense complexity in your relationship with Monsieur Vance." Lydia's eyes flashed. "We were colleagues, friends, perhaps, nothing more." But her fingers betrayed her, twisting a ring nervously. Hale, when questioned, was earnest but evasive. "I respected Reginald. But yes, I wanted the lead. Who wouldn't? Doesn't mean I'd kill for it. His alibi rehearsed missing from evidence." "It was right there on the prop table," he cried. Poirot's eyes narrowed. "The killer moves swiftly, but they cannot hide forever." The chapter closed with the detective standing alone on the stage, the ghost light casting long shadows, and a single question echoing. Who had turned the theater into a stage for murder? Chapter 2. Shadows in the Dressing Rooms. The Times Square Theater, its grandeur dimmed by tragedy, lay under a pall of suspicion as the clock neared midnight in 1935. The auditorium, once alive with the rustle of silk and the murmur of anticipation, now echoed with the clipped commands of Inspector Harlan's officers. The heavy crimson curtain, stuck halfway in its descent, hung like a guillotine over the stage where Reginald Vance had met his grim fate. The chalk outline of his body remained, a stark reminder of the poison that had felled him, and the spilled chalice, now missing from evidence, cast a shadow of intrigue. Hercule Poirot, the diminutive Belgian detective with a mustache as precise as his mind, stood at the edge of the stage, his green eyes scanning the scene with predatory focus. "The theater," he murmured to himself, "is a labyrinth of mirrors, reflecting truth and deception in equal measure. Let us peer into its depths." Inspector Harlan, his broad face etched with fatigue, gestured for Poirot to follow him backstage. The corridors were a maze of narrow passages, lit by flickering bulbs that cast long, wavering shadows. The air was thick with the scent of grease paint, moth-eaten costumes, and the faint, metallic tang of fear. Props lay scattered, swords, goblets, a crown tipped askew, abandoned in the chaos of Vance's collapse. Stagehands whispered in corners, their eyes darting toward the police, while actors huddled in knots, their faces pale beneath layers of stage makeup. Poirot's patent leather shoes clicked softly on the floorboards, a metronome to his racing thoughts. "Inspector," he said, his voice a melodic lilt, "we must begin with those closest to the victim. Their secrets will light our path." Their first stop was the say, "Who bore him such malice?" Elena's eyes flashed, a spark of venom beneath her grief. "Take your pick, Mr. Poirot. That harlot, Lydia Grant? She thought she could steal him from me. Their rehearsals lasted far too long. And Marcus Hale, his understudy, always skulking, dreaming of the spotlight. He'd kill for Reginald's role, I wager." Her words dripped with accusation, her hands twisting the handkerchief until it frayed. Poirot noted her motive, jealousy, a poison as potent as the arsenic that had claimed her husband. Yet her performance, so polished, raised a question. Was her sorrow genuine, or a script well rehearsed? They moved to Lydia Grant's dressing room, a contrast in opulence. Bouquets of roses and lilies spilled over her table, their scent cloying in the confined space. Lydia lounged in a satin chair, her auburn curls cascading over an emerald gown, a cigarette dangling from her manicured fingers. Her beauty was undeniable, but her eyes held a guarded edge. "Miss Grant," Poirot said, his tone courteous yet probing, "your colleague's death is most tragic. What can you tell me of Monsieur Vance?" Lydia exhaled a plume of smoke, her smile languid, but her fingers trembling slightly. "Reggie,
A brilliant actor, a charming man. We were friends. Nothing more, despite what Elena claims. Her denial was swift, but Poirot caught the flicker of unease. And this friendship, he pressed, it caused no tensions, no rivalries? Lydia's laugh was brittle. Rivalries? Please. Reginald overshadowed everyone, but I held my own. Though yes, he could be cruel, cutting my lines to steal the scene. Professional jealousy, perhaps, but murder? Absurd. Poirot's gaze fell to a small vial on her table, labeled as a complexion tonic. This, mademoiselle, what is its nature? He asked. Lydia shrugged. Just a health remedy. Arsenic-based, but harmless in small doses. Every actress uses them. Poirot's mustache twitched. Arsenic, even in trace amounts, was a dangerous coincidence. Was it a clue or a cleverly planted distraction? Next they found Marcus Hale in the green room, pacing like a
motive enough for murder. The final stop was Reginald Vance's dressing room, a shrine to his ego. Posters of his past triumphs adorned the walls, and a half-empty bottle of bourbon sat beside a mirror smeared with lipstick, a woman's shade, not Elena's. Poirot's fingers brushed a crumpled note tucked beneath a powder compact. "You'll pay for your betrayal, M.H." Hale's initials, too blatant to be trusted. "A red herring, perhaps," Poirot murmured to Harlan. "The killer wishes to point fingers." The room yielded other clues. A torn ticket stub from a rival theatre, a ledger page with cryptic figures, and a faint scent of cigar smoke. Victor Lang's vice. Poirot's grey cell's word. The note was fresh, its ink unfaded, suggesting recent planting. By whom? As they emerged, a stagehand burst through the corridor, his face flushed. "The chalice! It's gone! It was on the prop table under guard, and now it's vanished." Harlan cursed, dispatching officers to search. Poirot's eyes narrowed. "The killer is bold, Inspector. They seek to erase their traces." He moved to the prop table, now bare, save for a few goblets and a coiled rope. The chalice's absence was no accident. It had been taken to conceal evidence, perhaps the scratch Poirot had noted, or traces of the poison's delivery. Returning to the auditorium, Poirot observed the suspects, now gathered under Harlan's watchful eye. Elena sat apart, her face a mask of grief, but her glances toward Lydia were sharp with accusation. Lydia smoked furiously, her poise fraying. Hale fidgeted, his eyes darting to the exits. Victor Lang, the producer, stormed in, his cigar leaving a trail of ash. "This is a disaster!" he bellowed, his jowls quivering. "The show's ruined! My investors will have my head!" Poirot studied him. Lang's financial woes were no secret. Theatre gossip painted him as a man drowning in debt, his lavish lifestyle propped up by Vance's star power. "Monsieur Lang," Poirot said smoothly, "your distress is understandable. Yet tell me, where were you when the chalice was filled?" Lang sputtered, his cigar nearly full. "Acoustics." Harlan approached, his notebook filled with scribbles. "We've got more. A witness saw Elena near the prop table before the show, looking agitated. And Lydia's tonic? We're testing it, but it's suspicious. Hale's alibi is thin, and Lang's got that insurance policy. Big payout for Vance's death." Poirot nodded, his mind weaving connections. "We must tread carefully, Inspector. The killer anticipates our moves. The chalice's theft proves it." As the police searched for the missing prop, Poirot interviewed a stagehand, a nervous youth named Tommy. "I saw Mr. Lang poking around the props earlier," Tommy admitted, his voice low. "Said he was checking quality. Looked odd, though. He was sweating. Kept looking over his shoulder." Poirot's mustache twitched. "Most interesting. And Madame Vance? Miss Grant?" Tommy hesitated. "Mrs. Vance was fussing with Mr. Vance's costume, but she seemed angry. Miss Grant was in and out, fixing her makeup. Didn't see much else." The detective's gaze returned to the stage, where the ghost light, a single bulb illuminating the empty boards, cast an eerie glow. The theater, with its illusions and secrets, was a perfect stage for murder. Elena's jealousy, Lydia's ambition, Hale's resentment, Lang's desperation, each a thread in a tangled web. But which was the fatal knot? Poirot's thoughts were interrupted by a faint clatter from the wings. He turned, his cane tapping softly, but saw only shadows. "The killer watches," he whispered to Harlan. "They fear exposure." As the chapter closed, the suspects were summoned to the auditorium, their faces a gallery of fear and defiance. Poirot stood center stage, his small frame commanding. "Mes amis," he intoned, his voice carrying the weight of certainty. "A serpent moves among us. But fear not, Hercule Poirot sees through the shadows." A sudden crack of thunder punctuated his words, and the lights flickered. In the darkness, a gasp echoed. Whose? The truth loomed, but the chalice's killer both desperate and cunning. "The stage is set," he murmured to himself, "but the script is unwritten. Let us find its author." Inspector Harlan, his face etched with the strain of a sleepless night, joined Poirot backstage, where the air was thick with dust and tension. The corridors buzzed with police activity, officers dusting for prints, cataloging props, whispering theories. The missing chalice had turned the investigation feverish, its absence a taunt from the murderer. "We've got men combing the alleys," Harlan growled, his notebook bulging with scribbled notes. "Found the chalice in a dumpster out back, wiped clean, but there's a partial print. Doesn't match anyone yet." Poirot's mustache twitched, a faint smile playing beneath it. "Patience, Inspector. The print may speak, but first, we listen to the suspects. Their words, their silences, they betray more than fingerprints." Their first destination was the office of Victor Lang, the producer, perched atop the theater like a vulture's nest. The room was a chaos of papers, playbills, and half-smoked cigars, the air heavy with the acrid bite of tobacco. Lang, a rotund man with a florid complexion, stood behind a cluttered desk, his silk tie askew, his eyes bloodshot. "This is a catastrophe!" he bellowed, waving a cigar like a conductor's baton. "Vance was my star, my lifeline. Without him, the show's finished, and I'm bankrupt." Poirot, unfazed by the bluster, fixed Lang with a piercing gaze. "Monsieur Lang, your distress is evident. Yet, tell me, your financial state, it was precarious, non? And Monsieur Vance, he knew of this?" Lang's jowls quivered, his cigar pausing mid-air. "What are you implying? I poured my fortune into this production. Vance's death is the last thing I needed." But Poirot's eyes had caught a gleam, a locked drawer in the desk, its brass handle smudged. With a nod to Harlan, the drawer was pried open, revealing a ledger bound in cracked leather. Its pages, meticulously inked, told a damning tale: dwindling ticket sales, mounting debts, and cryptic auditorium, where the suspects were gathered under police guard. Eleanor Vance sat in a front-row seat, her widow's grief a carefully curated performance. Her gloved hands twisted a pearl necklace, and her eyes, though red-rimmed, held a calculating glint. "Madame Vance," Poirot said, his tone gentle but probing, "your husband's discovery of financial misdeeds. Did he share this with you?" Eleanor's lips parted, then closed. "He mentioned concerns about Lang," she admitted. "Reginald said the show was bleeding money, and Lang was hiding something. I told him to stay out of it." Her voice trembled, but Poirot sensed a deeper truth. She knew more than she let on.
Her dependence on Vance's income, tied to alimony and his will, made her a suspect still. Had she acted to protect her future, or was her grief genuine? Lydia Grant, the co-star, stood near the stage, her auburn curls disheveled, her emerald gown creased from the night's ordeal. She lit another cigarette, her hands steadier now, but her eyes wary. "Miss Grant," Poirot began, "your tonic intrigues me. Arsenic, you said, for your complexion. Yet the poison that killed Monsieur Vance was arsenic. A coincidence, perhaps?" Lydia's laugh was sharp, almost defiant. "Half the actresses in New York use those tonics, Mr. Poirot. Test it. It's harmless." Harlan interjected. "Lab's checking it now. But you were seen near the prop table before the show, handling things." Lydia's eyes flashed. "I was adjusting my props, my crown, my fan. I didn't touch that damn chalice." But her denial rang hollow, and Poirot noted her knowledge of poisons. A red herring or a slip? Marcus Hale, the understudy, hovered near the orchestra pit, his script still clutched like a talisman. His boyish charm was fraying, his blonde hair damp with sweat. "Mr. Hale," Poirot said, "your ambition is no secret, yet ambition can curdle into envy. Tell me of your quarrel with Monsieur Vance." Hale's jaw tightened. "It was nothing, a spat over rehearsal time. He hogged the stage, left me in the wings. I wanted the role, sure."
A reconstruction of the fatal scene, assembling the cast on stage. The actors, reluctant but compliant, reprised their movements. Lydia, as Lady Eleanor, handed Vance the chalice. Hale, in the wings, watched. Eleanor, backstage, adjusted costumes. Lang claimed his box seat, but a stagehand recalled him lingering near the props during intermission, checking quality. Poirot observed each gesture, each glance. Lydia's hands hesitated as she mimed passing the chalice. Hale's eyes darted nervously. Eleanor's posture was too rigid. Lang, absent during the reenactment, sent a chill through Poirot. "He avoids the spotlight," the detective murmured. The reconstruction yielded a discovery. A prop sword, its hilt hollow, contained a folded note. "Meet me after RV," it read, in Vance's hand. To whom? The handwriting matched the ledger note, suggesting Vance's intent to confront someone. Lang, perhaps. Poirot tucked the note away, his mind racing. The arsenic's delivery, swift, precise, required opportunity. The chalice, filled just before the act, narrowed the window. Jenkins, the prop master, swore he'd used sealed water, but someone had tampered with it. Who? Returning to Eleanor, Poirot probed deeper. "Madame, your husband's will, did it favor you?" Eleanor's eyes widened, then narrowed. "He provided for me, yes, but he threatened divorce, citing infidelities. If he died, I'd keep everything, unless foul play was proven." Her admission was a bombshell. Poison would void her inheritance, clearing her perhaps, but her presence backstage kept her in the frame. Lydia, re-questioned, admitted to a brief affair with Vance, ended weeks ago. "He broke it off," she said, her voice bitter. "Chose the stage over me." Her tonic, lab results confirmed, was harmless, a red herring. But her proximity to the props lingered in Poirot's mind. Hale's alibi cracked slightly. A janitor saw him near the prop table, not the green room, during intermission. "I was grabbing a script," Hale protested. Poirot's smile was enigmatic. "Truth is a slippery prop, monsieur." Lang, cornered, revealed more under pressure. Too much. The ink matched the MH note. A clumsy frame or a desperate ploy? Poirot's gray cells churned. The ledger, the ring, the note, the chalice's theft, all pointed to Lang. Yet the accomplice's shadow loomed. The letter's timing suggested panic. "The killer fears exposure," Poirot said to Harlan. "They strike to silence." As the chapter closed, thunder roared, and the theater's lights flickered, plunging the suspects into shadow. A scuffle in the wings,
A figure fleeing? The net tightened, but the killer's final act was yet to come. Chapter 4. Alibis and Illusions. The Times Square Theater, bathed in the gray pallor of a 1935 Manhattan morning, stood as a hollow monument to the previous night's tragedy. The auditorium, once vibrant with the chatter of theater-goers, now echoed with the low murmur of police radios and the shuffle of boots on worn carpet. The stage, still marked by the chalk outline of Reginald Vance's final collapse, seemed to pulse with unspoken secrets, its half-lowered curtain a grim sentinel. Hercule Poirot, his impeccable suit a stark contrast to the disarray around him, stood center stage, his cane tapping rhythmically as his green eyes scanned the shadows. The stolen chalice, recovered but wiped clean, and the threatening letter found by Lydia Grant had tightened the web of suspicion. The killer, Poirot mused to Inspector Harlan, plays a game of mirrors, reflecting guilt onto others. But mirrors, they crack under scrutiny. Harlan, his face haggard from the sleepless investigation, clutched a notepad thick with scribbles. "We've checked alibis, Poirot, but they're flimsier than a stage backdrop. Everyone's got gaps." He gestured toward the suspects, now gathered in the orchestra seats under police watch. Eleanor Vance, her widow's grief a polished act. Lydia Grant, chain-smoking with a defiant glare. Marcus Hale, fidgeting with his script. And Victor Lang, pacing like a caged bear, his cigar leaving a trail of ash. Poirot nodded, his mustache twitching. "Alibis, Inspector, are like costumes, designed to conceal." Measured. "The powder room, as I said. I needed a moment. Reginald and I had argued earlier. I was upset." Poirot tilted his head. "This argument, it concerned his liaison with Mademoiselle Grant, no?" Elena's lips tightened. "Yes, he denied it, but I saw them, whispering, touching. I couldn't bear it." Her motive, jealousy, was clear, but her absence from the stage raised questions. Had she slipped away to tamper with the chalice? Lydia Grant, next, stood near the proscenium. Her emerald gown creased, her cigarette smoke curling like a spectre. "Miss Grant," Poirot began, "your costume change. It was brief, yes? Yet you were near the prop table beforehand." Lydia's eyes narrowed, her voice sharp. "I was adjusting my fan, my crown, not that chalice. You think I'd poison Reggie? We were close, yes. But I'm no killer." Harlan interjected. "A stagehand saw you lingering by the props, looking nervous." Lydia's laugh was brittle. "Nervous? It was opening night. We were all on edge." Poirot noted her defensiveness, and the vial of tonic in her dressing room. Though lab tests were pending, its arsenic content was a troubling echo of the murder weapon. Marcus Hale, the understudy, sat slouched in a seat, his blonde hair disheveled, his script creased from nervous handling. "Mr. Hale," Poirot said, "your ambition is no secret. You watched from the wings, close to the chalice, perhaps?" Hale's jaw clenched. "I was watching the performance, learning from Vance. I didn't touch anything." Harlan flipped a page in his notebook. "A janitor says you were near the prop table during intermission, not the wings." Hale's eyes widened. "I was grabbing a prop sword. I didn't go near that chalice." His alibi, already thin, cracked further. But Poirot sensed his panic was genuine, or a masterful act. Victor Lang, the producer, was found in the foyer, his cigar smoke choking the air. His florid face glistened with sweat as he ranted about the show's ruin. Poirot's eyes tracked each step, noting hesitations. Lydia's fingers lingered on the chalice prop. Hale's gaze darted to the prop table. Elena's posture was too stiff, as if guarding a secret.
Lang, absent again, sent a stagehand to represent him. A dodge, Poirot thought. As the scene played out, Poirot examined the prop table, now under guard. The chalice, recovered from the dumpster, sat in evidence, its surface wiped but the scratch intact. Chemical analysis confirmed arsenic residue, applied minutes before Vance drank. A narrow window. "The poison," Poirot said to Harlan. "It was added during the performance, or just before. Who had access?" Jenkins, the prop master, swore the chalice was filled with sealed water, checked an hour prior. Someone had tampered with it in the chaos of the act. A red herring surfaced. A search of Lydia's dressing room uncovered a second vial, hidden in a makeup case, labeled as tonic, but containing arsenic. "It's not mine," Lydia protested. "Someone planted it." Her outrage seemed genuine, but Poirot reserved judgment. Was it a frame or her own carelessness? Hale, confronted with the janitor's testimony, admitted to grabbing a prop but swore he avoided the chalice. "I knew Vance was particular about it," he said, his voice unsteady. Elena's alibi faced scrutiny. A powder room attendant recalled seeing her, but only briefly, enough time to slip backstage. "I was distraught," Elena insisted, "not plotting murder." Her dependence on Vance's will, voided by foul play, weakened her motive, yet her presence near the props lingered in Poirot's mind. Lang's financial motive deepened. Harlan uncovered a telegram from an insurance agent. Vance's policy, doubled for onstage accidents, would clear Lang's debts. "He planned to close the show after the payout," Harlan whispered. Poirot nodded, his gaze on Lang's ring. "The scratch, Inspector. It is no accident. We must test it against the chalice." The reconstruction paused as a stagehand stumbled, dropping a prop sword. Its hilt, hollow, revealed a hidden compartment, a forged receipt for arsenic, dated days.
"Touch that chalice!" Her denial was fervent, but Poirot raised a hand. "The print, madame, may be innocent, transferred perhaps by a glove or prop. We must not rush to judgment." Yet the revelation tightened the noose. Had Elena acted in jealousy, or was she a pawn in a larger game? As thunder rumbled outside, Poirot's mind raced. The receipt, the fingerprint, the chalice's theft, all suggested a killer orchestrating chaos. Lang's absence during the critical moment, his ring's potential match to the scratch, and the insurance payout formed a damning picture. Yet the forged receipt and planted vial hinted at a broader conspiracy. Was Lang alone, or did he have an accomplice? The chapter closed with a sudden shout from backstage. A stagehand, searching the wings, found a torn glove near the prop table, its fabric stained with a faint chemical residue. "Arsenic?" Harlan wondered aloud. Poirot's eyes gleamed. "Perhaps, Inspector. The glove, it is a costume piece, no? Worn to conceal the guilty hand." As officers bagged the evidence, the suspects exchanged wary glances. The theater, a house of illusions, was unraveling, but the killer's final bow remained hidden in the shadows. Chapter 5. The Jealous Heart. The Times Square Theater, shrouded in the drizzle of a 1935 Manhattan dawn, stood as a fortress of secrets, its gilded facade dulled by the weight of murder. The auditorium, stripped of its glamour, was a cavern of shadows, the velvet seats empty save for the suspects huddled under police scrutiny. The stage, marked by Reginald Vance's chalk outline, seemed to pulse with the aftershock of his poisoned collapse. Hercule Poirot, his diminutive frame a beacon of order amidst chaos, stood near the proscenium, his cane tapping softly as his green eyes dissected the scene. The recovered chalice, its telltale scratch a silent accuser, and the torn glove, stained with chemical residue, had tightened the net around the killer. The heart, Poirot murmured to Inspector Harlan. "It betrays itself in passion. But whose heart burns with guilt?" Harlan, his face carved with exhaustion, clutched a report from the forensics team. "That fingerprint on the chalice, it's Elena's, partial but clear. She's got explaining to do." Poirot's mustache twitched, his expression enigmatic. "A print, Inspector, is but a shadow of truth. It may be planted, transferred, misunderstood. Let us probe deeper." The glove, the forged receipt, the threatening letter, all pointed to a killer weaving a tapestry of misdirection. Poirot's gray cells churned, sifting motives. Elena's jealousy, Lydia's ambition, Hale's envy, Lang's desperation. The theater, a stage for deception, held its secrets close. The interrogation began in the green room, its faded wallpaper and sagging furniture a stark contrast to the auditorium's opulence. Elena Vance sat rigid, her gloved hands clenched, her widow's black now a stark frame for her pale face. The accusation of the fingerprint hung heavy, her eyes darting like a trapped animal's. "Madame Vance," Poirot began, his voice a velvet scalpel, "the chalice bears your mark. How do you explain this?" Elena's composure cracked, her voice rising. "Impossible! I never touched it. I was in the powder room, grieving my husband's betrayal." Poirot tilted his head. "Knowledge, perhaps of Lang's schemes?"
Poirot moved to Lydia Grant, found in her dressing room, surrounded by wilting bouquets and cigarette stubs. Her auburn curls were disheveled, her emerald gown discarded for a simple blouse, but her defiance remained. "Miss Grant," Poirot said, "your affair with Monsieur Vance, it ended, yes? Yet the heart does not forget so easily." Lydia's laugh was sharp, her cigarette flaring. "Affair? It was a fling, nothing more. Reggie ended it weeks ago, said the stage was his true love. I didn't care enough to kill him." Harlan interjected, holding up the vial from her room. "This tonic, arsenic-based, like the murder weapon. Care to explain?" Lydia's eyes flashed. "It's a beauty remedy, diluted to nothing. Test it, you'll see." Poirot noted her confidence. The lab results, due soon, would clarify. Was her denial truth or a performance? Marcus Hale, the understudy, lingered in the wings, his script now tattered, his boyish features taut with strain. "Mr. Hale," Poirot began, "your ambition burns brightly. Yet ambition can curdle into desperation. Where were you when the chalice was poisoned?" Hale's jaw tightened. "In the green room, rehearsing. I told you." Harlan flipped his notebook. "Janitor says you were near the props, not the green room, during intermission." Hale's voice rose. "I grabbed a sword, not the chalice. I admired Vance, even if he hogged the spotlight." Poirot's gaze lingered on Hale's hands, calloused, capable of scratching silver. Yet his panic seemed genuine, his motive thin. Was he a pawn or a player? Victor Lang, the producer, was cornered in his office, the air thick with cigar smoke and desperation. His florid face glistened, his signet ring glinting as he gestured wildly. "Monsieur Lang," Poirot said, "your ledger reveals much. Embezzlement, threats from Vance to expose you, and the insurance policy, a fortune."
Intermission. Before Vance's fatal scene, the cast, weary and tense, complied, moving through their routines. Elena mimed her powder room exit, but a stagehand recalled her, lingering backstage, near the props. Lydia's costume change was swift, yet she passed the prop table. Hale, in the wings, was seen by the janitor, not the green room. Lang, claiming a phone call, was spotted by Tommy, the stagehand, fiddling with props. Poirot's eyes tracked each movement, his mind mapping the timeline. The chalice filled at 8:30 p.m. was poisoned by 8:47 p.m., when Vance drank. The window was tight, minutes at most. A new clue emerged. A stagehand found a crumpled playbill in the prop room, annotated with Vance's handwriting. Lang's cooking the books, tell investors. It matched the ledger note, confirming Vance's intent to expose Lang. He knew too much, Poirot said to Harlan. But who else knew? Elena admitted overhearing Vance and Lang arguing days prior. I begged him to drop it, she said, her voice breaking. He wouldn't listen. Lydia, pressed again, revealed a detail. Reggie mentioned Lang's debts, said the show was a front. I thought he was exaggerating. Her candor cleared her slightly, but her proximity to the props lingered. Hale, confronted with the janitor's testimony, admitted to grabbing a prop, but swore he avoided the chalice. Vance was obsessive about it, he said. I wouldn't touch his precious prop. Lang's story unraveled further. A telegram from his insurance agent, intercepted by Harlan, confirmed double indemnity for onstage death, enough to clear Lang's debts and fund a new venture. You plan to close the show, Poirot accused, and profit from tragedy. Lang's face purpled. You can't prove that! But the glove, the ring, the ledger, they wove a noose. As rain lashed the theatre's windows, Poirot gathered the suspects on stage, the work lights casting harsh shadows. The killer, he declared, sought not just death, but gain. They hid behind alibis, but the truth emerges. Elena wept, her pearls scattering. Lydia's cigarette burned low. Hale's script trembled, puzzle falling into place. But the killer's identity remained cloaked. Their next move, a shadow on the horizon. As thunder roared, the theater's lights flickered, and a crash echoed from backstage. A prop table overturned? The chapter closed with Poirot's voice, calm but resolute. The curtain rises on truth, mes amis. The killer cannot hide forever. Chapter 6. Threads of Deception. The Times Square Theater, its grandeur eroded by the relentless drizzle of a 1935 Manhattan morning, stood as a hollow shell of its former glory. The auditorium, stripped of its glittering audience, echoed with the low hum of police activity, the velvet seats now hosting only suspicion and dread. The stage, marked by the ghostly chalk outline of Reginald Vance's final collapse, seemed to whisper secrets in the dim glow of the ghost light. Hercule Poirot, his impeccable suit a stark contrast to the chaos, paced the proscenium with measured steps, his cane tapping a rhythm of deduction. His green eyes, sharp as a hawk's, darted from the wings to the orchestra pit, piecing together a puzzle grown ever more intricate. The recovered chalice, its telltale scratch a silent accusation, the arsenic-stained glove, and Lydia's whispered hint of a hidden letter had tightened the web around the killer. The threads of deception, Poirot murmured to Inspector Harlan. They are delicate, yet they bind the guilty. We must tug carefully. Harlan, his face a map of fatigue, clutched a sheaf of reports, his voice rough with urgency. That letter Lydia mentioned, it's key, Poirot. And the glove's arsenic residue, it's no coincidence. We're closing in. Poirot's mustache twitched, his expression enigmatic. The letter, the glove, the chalice, they are props in a grand illusion, Inspector. But the truth, it cannot be hidden forever. The suspects, Elena Vance, Lydia Grant, Marcus Hale, and Victor Lang, sat under police guard in the auditorium, their faces a gallery of fear, defiance, and calculation. The second poison in Vance's blood, revealed by the coroner, suggested a conspiracy, a shadow accomplice lurking behind the primary killer. Poirot's gray cells churned, unraveling motives. Evidence of embezzlement painted a dark picture. Poirot summoned Lang to his office. a cluttered den, reeking of cigar smoke and desperation. The producer, his florid face glistening, stood behind his desk, his signet ring glinting as he gestured wildly. "Monsieur Lang," Poirot began, his voice smooth but unyielding. "Your absence from the box seat, your tampering with props, your financial ruin, these are not mere coincidences. The glove, it matches one scene here." Lang's cigar trembled, ash scattering. "You're grasping, Poirot. I adjusted props to save this show, not to kill my star." But Poirot's gaze fell to the ring, its sharp edge a perfect match for the chalice's scratch. "And this ring, monsieur, it left its mark, no?" Lang paled, stammering. "A coincidence! I handle props all the time!" His denial was vehement, but his eyes betrayed panic. Next, Poirot re-interviewed Elena in the green room, her widow's black now creased from hours of tension. Her pearls clicked nervously as she sat, her eyes avoiding Poirot's. "Madame Vance," he said, "you overheard your husband and Monsieur Lang arguing about funds. Did you know of the letter he wrote?" Elena's breath caught. "I found it in his dressing room after he died. It accused Lang of fraud, said he'd tell the investors. I hid it. Foolish, I know, but I feared it would ruin us." Her admission cleared her of murder. Why hide evidence if guilty? But her proximity to the props kept her in the frame. "And the chalice, madame, did you touch it?" Elena shook her head. "Never. My fingerprint, it must be a mistake." Poirot noted her sincerity, but the partial print suggested manipulation. Lydia Grant, found chain-smoking in her dressing room, was next. Her auburn curls were pinned hastily, her defiance fraying. "Miss Grant," Poirot said, "you spoke of a letter. Where is it now?" Lydia's eyes darted. "I saw it in Reggie." Requested a fourth reconstruction, focusing on the intermission's chaos. The cast, exhausted but compliant, moved through their routines, Eleanor exiting to the powder room, Lydia changing costumes, Hale grabbing a prop, Lang adjusting the chalice. Poirot watched, his mind mapping the timeline. The chalice, filled at 8:30 p.m., was poisoned by 8:47 p.m. The glove suggested a careful hand. The scratch, a careless one. Lang's absence from his box, confirmed by an usher's log, placed him backstage. "You tampered, monsieur," Poirot accused Lang later. "The chalice, it was your canvas." Lang sneered. "Prove it, little man." A new clue emerged. A stagehand found a hidden safe in Lang's office, its lock freshly scratched. Inside, a vial with arsenic traces and a second glove, matching the first. "Circumstantial!" Lang bellowed, but his voice cracked. Poirot's smile was faint. "The safe, the glove, the ring. They speak, monsieur." The safe also held a draft insurance claim, predated, for Vance's death, proof of premeditation. Poirot gathered the suspects on stage, the worklights casting stark shadows. "The killer," he declared, "weaves a web of lies, notes, vials, alibis. But the truth emerges." Eleanor's pearls scattered as she gasped. Lydia's cigarette fell. Hale's script trembled. Lang's cigar burned low. Harlan's radio crackled. The arsenic receipts shop confirmed Lang's associate as the buyer. "We've got him," Harlan muttered. But the second poison, trace belladonna in Vance's blood, suggested a partner. Who? Lydia's earlier whisper gnawed at Poirot. The letter, accusing Lang, was missing. Had she lied to deflect suspicion? Eleanor's alibi solidified. The powder room attendant confirmed her presence, though briefly. Lydia's costume change was verified by a seamstress, but her proximity to the props lingered. Hale's janitor sighting was corroborated, but he swore innocence. Lang's absence, the glove, the ring. "You, monsieur?" Poirot asked. Hale faltered. "I panicked. Thought you'd pin it on me." His sabotage was fear, not guilt. Poirot's mind raced. Lang's flight, the glove, the belladonna, the letter still missing, was key. As officers searched, a stagehand shouted, "Found something! In the prop room!" A torn envelope, Vance's handwriting, accusing Lang. But a second note, tucked inside, read, "LG knows." Lydia Grant? The chapter closed with Poirot's voice cutting through the chaos. The web tightens, mes amis. The killer's mask slips. Rain pounded the roof, the theater a cauldron of suspicion. The letter's hint, Lydia's involvement, loomed, and the blackout's timing suggested a desperate act. The truth was near, but the killer's final curtain remained drawn. Chapter 7. The Midnight Confrontation. The Times Square Theater, its opulent facade battered by the relentless rain of a 1935 Manhattan night, stood as a shadowed mausoleum of secrets. The auditorium, stripped of its glittering crowds, echoed with the low hum of police activity, the velvet seats now a silent jury for the suspects under guard. The stage, marked by the ghostly chalk outline of Reginald Vance's poisoned collapse, pulsed with unspoken truths, its half-lowered curtain a grim veil. Hercule Poirot, his diminutive frame a beacon of precision amidst the chaos, stood in the wings, his cane tapping softly as his green eyes pierced the gloom. The blackout, a desperate act of sabotage, had revealed Marcus Hale's panic, but the arsenic-stained glove, the missing letter, and the trace of belladonna in Vance's blood pointed to a deeper conspiracy. "The killer," Poirot murmured to Inspector Harlan. "They dance in the shadows, but their steps falter. We are close, mon ami." Harlan, his face etched with exhaustion, clutched a flashlight, its beam cutting through the flickering candlelight. Hale's prints on the fuse box, he admits to the blackout, says it was fear. But Lang's flight attempt, that briefcase stuffed with cash and insurance papers, it's damning. Poirot's mustache twitched, his expression enigmatic. Fear betrays the jealousy, ambition, and greed into a pattern. The belladonna, a second poison, suggested an accomplice, and Lydia's whispered hint loomed large. Poirot began with Lang, detained in his office, the air heavy with cigar smoke and desperation. His signet ring, its edge matching the chalice's scratch, glinted as he gestured wildly. "Monsieur Lang," Poirot said, his voice a velvet blade. "You fled with a briefcase of cash and insurance claims predated for Vance's death. Explain." Lang's jowls quivered, his voice a rasp. "It's not what it seems. I was securing funds to save the show. Creditors were circling. Vance's death ruins me." Poirot's eyes narrowed. "Yet the ledger, the glove, the ring, they point to you. The chalice was poisoned during your adjustments, no?" Lang sneered. "You've got theories, not proof." But his eyes darted to the safe, where the second glove and arsenic vial had been found. Poirot's smile was faint. "The truth, monsieur. It emerges like a spotlight." Next, Poirot confronted Hale in the green room, his script discarded, his hands trembling. "Mr. Hale," Poirot began, "your sabotage of the fuse box, it was to protect yourself, yes? But from what?" Hale's voice cracked. "I panicked. That note with my initials, M.H., I thought you'd pin the murder on me. I just wanted to slow things down." His admission cleared him of murder but confirmed his fear. Poirot's gaze lingered on Hale's calloused hands, capable of tampering, but his motive was thin. You envied Vance, Poirot pressed. But did you conspire? Hale shook his head. I wanted his role, not his death. His sincerity rang true, but Poirot reserved judgment. Lydia Grant, found in her dressing room, was a study in fraying composure. Her auburn curls were loose, her cigarette smouldering. Miss Grant, Poirot said, the note, LG knows, it implicates you. What did you know of Vance's accusations against Lang? Lydia's eyes widened, then narrowed. I saw Reggie's letter, yes. He said Lang was stealing, planning to sink the show. I told him to stay quiet. It'd ruin us all.
Her of murder, yet her presence backstage lingered.
The fingerprint, madame, it is yours, yet you deny touching the chalice. Elena's eyes filled. I swear, I didn't. Someone must have used my gloves. Poirot's mind flashed to the torn glove. Had it been hers? Planted to frame her? A fifth reconstruction was staged, focusing on the intermission's chaos. The cast, weary and fractious, moved through their routines. Elena exiting, Lydia changing, Hale grabbing a prop, Lang tampering. Poirot watched, noting Lang's absence from his box. Confirmed by the usher's log, 8:30 to 8:40 p.m., the exact window for poisoning the chalice. The glove, the ring's scratch, the predated insurance claim, they pointed to Lang. But the belladonna, a slower poison, suggested a second hand. The accomplice, Poirot murmured to Harlan, they worked in tandem, one to distract, one to kill. A new clue emerged. A stagehand found a crumpled ticket stub in the prop room from a rival theatre, annotated with Vance's handwriting. Lang's meeting, 8 p.m. It placed Lang backstage before the show, contradicting his alibi. You met Vance, Poirot accused Lang later. He confronted you, yes? Lang's face purpled. A business talk, nothing more. He was paranoid about the books. But the ticket stub, paired with the ledger, confirmed Vance's intent to expose Lang. Poirot re-examined the chalice. Its scratch a perfect match for Lang's ring, confirmed by a jeweller's loupe. The mark, monsieur? It is your signature, Poirot said. Lang's sneer faltered. You're guessing. But the glove, the vial, the safe, thereby wove a noose. Harlan's team uncovered a wire transfer, Lang to an associate, purchasing belladonna under a pseudonym. The second poison, Harlan said. It's him. Poirot nodded, but the note, LG knows, gnawed at him. Lydia's role was unclear. As midnight tolled, Poirot gathered the suspects on stage, the air thick with dread. The killer, he declared, sought profit through. To cuff Lydia, she collapsed, sobbing. I didn't kill him. I only helped Lang get the poison. He promised me a new show. Her confession cracked the case. Lang, the mastermind, used Lydia's bitterness to secure belladonna, layering poisons to confuse the coroner. The arsenic, swift and theatrical, was his. The belladonna, her contribution, a slower death to ensure success. Poirot's voice cut through the chaos. The guilty unravel, mes amis. Lang's greed, Lydia's spite, they wove this tragedy. But a final twist loomed. The letter, still missing, held Vance's full accusation. A stagehand shouted from the wings, Found it in Elena's purse, torn. Elena gasped. I hid it to protect us, not to kill. Her innocence held, but the letter sealed Lang's fate. The chapter closed with Lang and Lydia cuffed, the theatre's lights flaring back to life. Poirot stood center stage, his cane steady. The truth, it is a spotlight, revealing all. Rain pounded the roof, the suspects' faces a gallery of shock. The letter, the glove, the poisons, they pointed to a duo,
But one question lingered. Was there another shadow in the wings? Chapter 8. Revelations in the Wings. The Times Square Theatre, its gilded splendor dulled by the relentless rain of a 1935 Manhattan night, stood as a shadowed crypt of secrets. The auditorium, stripped of its glittering throng, echoed with the low crackle of police radios and the shuffle of boots on worn carpet. The stage, marked by the ghostly chalk outline of Reginald Vance's poisoned collapse, seemed to pulse with the weight of betrayal. Hercule Poirot, his diminutive frame a beacon of order amidst the chaos, stood in the wings, his cane tapping a rhythm of deduction. His green eyes, sharp as a blade, scanned the flickering shadows, piecing together a puzzle grown ever more intricate. The torn letter, found in Elena Vance's purse, accusing Victor Lang of fraud, the arsenic-stained glove, and Lydia Grant's whispered confession of aiding Lang with belladonna had tightened the noose. Yet the full truth remained veiled.
The key to the motive's heart. Poirot began by reconstructing the letter, its torn fragments pieced together on a prop table under the glare of work lights. The text in Vance's bold hand read, "Lang's embezzling funds. Ticket sales siphoned, debts hidden. I'll tell investors after tonight's show. He can't hide." A second note, tucked inside, bore the cryptic, "LG knows." Elena, confronted on stage, wept as she explained. "I found it in Reggie's dressing room after he died," she said, her voice trembling. "I hid it to protect his legacy. Scandal would ruin us both. I swear I didn't kill him." Her tears seemed genuine, and Poirot noted her logic. Poison voided her inheritance, clearing her of murder. Yet her presence backstage and the fingerprint on the chalice kept her in the frame. "Madame," Poirot said, "your silence protected the killer. Why not speak sooner?" Elena's eyes fell. "I feared Lang's wrath. He's ruthless." The detective turned to Lydia, who stood near the orchestra pit, her auburn curls disheveled, her cigarette extinguished. Her defiance had crumbled, her confession of aiding Lang with belladonna hanging heavy. "Miss Grant," Poirot said, his voice a velvet scalpel. "You supplied the second poison, yes? But what was your gain?" Lydia's lips trembled, her eyes darting. "Lang promised me a new show, a starring role. Reggie humiliated me, ended our fling, mocked my talent. I wanted him gone, but I didn't touch the chalice." Harlan held up the wire transfer. Lang to Lydia, labelled rehearsal fees. "This says you were paid," he snapped. Lydia's voice cracked. "It was for costumes. Lang lied to me." Poirot's gaze lingered on her trembling hands. Guilty, but not alone. Marcus Hale, pacing the wings, clutched a tattered script, his boyish features pale with strain. "Mr. Hale," Poirot began, "your sabotage of the fuse box cleared you of murder. But your With Lydia's aid," Lang's sneer faltered. "You can't prove collusion." Poirot staged a final reconstruction, assembling the cast on stage under glaring lights. The scene. The intermission, 8:30 to 8:40 p.m., when the chalice was poisoned. Elena mimed her powder room exit. Lydia, her costume change. Hale grabbing a prop. Lang adjusting the chalice. Poirot watched, noting Lang's absence from his box, confirmed by the usher's log. The glove, the ring, the belladonna. They pointed to Lang as mastermind, Lydia as accomplice. The letter's accusations sealed his motive. Vance's exposure would ruin him. A new clue emerged. A stagehand found a hidden ledger page in Lang's office, tucked in a script, detailing insurance payouts, double for on-stage accidents. "You plan to close the show," Poirot accused Lang, "and profit from tragedy." Lang's face purpled. "You're guessing." But the page, paired with the wire transfer to Lydia, was damning. Lydia, confronted, collapsed. "I gave him the belladonna," she sobbed, "but he swore it was just to make Reggie sick, not kill him." Her confession clarified her role, a pawn, manipulated by Lang's promises. Elena, watching, gasped, "Victor, how could you?" Her voice broke, but Poirot noted her clarity. She was no killer. Hale, exonerated, stood silent, his ambition no match for Lang's greed. The microphone reel, replayed, captured Lang's whisper. "The plan worked. Vance is gone." Lydia's response, "You swore no one would know," sealed their guilt. Harlan's team confirmed the belladonna purchase. Lang's associate paid through Lydia's account, a clumsy attempt to hide collusion. Poirot gathered the suspects center stage, the air thick with dread. "The theater," he declared, "is a stage for truth as well as illusion. Monsieur Lang, your greed wove this tragedy. Mademoiselle Grant, your spite aided it." He outlined the plot. Lang, facing ruin, insured Vance for a fortune, doubling for on-stage death. He poisoned the chalice.
Blood. "A third poison," Harlan muttered. Poirot's eyes gleamed. "Not a poison, Inspector. A residue from Vance's own tonic, perhaps. A distraction, but it confirms our path." The cyanide, a red herring, was likely from Vance's health regimen, not murder. Yet it underscored Lang's desperation to confuse the autopsy. As officers led Lang and Lydia away, the theater's lights flared, casting stark relief on the stage. Poirot stood alone, his cane steady. "The guilty unravel," he said, his voice echoing. "But one thread remains. Where is the letter's final piece?" A stagehand, searching the wings, shouted, "Found something! In the prop sword's hilt!" A final fragment, Vance's handwriting. Lang's accomplice. Watch her. Her? Lydia? Or another? The chapter closed with Poirot's gaze on the suspects, the rain pounding the roof. The letter's warning, the poisons, the glove, they pointed to Lang and Lydia. But the hint of another accomplice lingered. The theater, a house of deception, held one last secret, its curtain yet to fall. Chapter 9. The Accomplice Unmasked. The Times Square Theater, its gilded splendor battered by the unyielding rain of a 1935 Manhattan night, stood as a shadowed reliquary of betrayal. The auditorium, stripped of its glittering audience, echoed with the low crackle of police radios and the shuffle of boots on worn carpet. The stage, still marked by the ghostly chalk outline of Reginald Vance's poisoned collapse, pulsed with the weight of secrets unraveling. Hercule Poirot, his diminutive frame a pillar of resolve amidst the chaos, stood center stage, his cane tapping a rhythm of certainty. His green eyes, sharp as a falcon's, pierced the flickering shadows, piecing together the final threads of a murderous tapestry. The torn letter, accusing Victor Lang of fraud, the arsenic-stained glove, Lydia Grant's confession of supplying belladonna, and the cryptic note, Lang's accomplice, watch her.
The puzzle incomplete. Poirot began with Lydia, summoned to the stage under the glare of work lights. Her auburn curls were disheveled, her defiance crumbled into trembling hands clutching a handkerchief. "Miss Grant?" Poirot said, his voice a velvet blade.
You confessed to supplying belladonna, manipulated by Lang's promises of stardom. Yet the letter, Lang's accomplice, watch her. It names you, non? Lydia recoiled, her eyes wide with panic. Me? Absurd! I gave him the poison, yes, but only to sicken Reggie, not kill him. Lang swore it was safe. Harlan held up the wire transfer. Lang to Lydia, disguised as rehearsal fees. This says you were paid, Miss Grant, he snapped. Lydia's voice broke. For costumes, not murder. He used me. Poirot's gaze lingered on her trembling hands. Guilty, but not the mastermind. The note's warning nagged at him. Was her truly Lydia? Or another? Elena Vance, seated in the front row, her widow's black creased with strain, watched with tear-streaked eyes. Madame Vance, Poirot called. The letter you hid. It accused Lang, yes, but also warned of an accomplice. Did you suspect Mademoiselle Grant? Elena's pearls clicked as she shook her head. I thought it was about Lang's greed, not Lydia. Reggie never trusted her, but I didn't think. Murder. Her sincerity cleared her further. Her inheritance, voided by poison, removed her motive. Yet her fingerprint on the chalice, likely transferred, kept her in the frame. Madame, Poirot pressed, you were backstage. Did you see Lydia near the chalice? Elena hesitated. I saw her near the props, adjusting her fan, but Lang was there too, checking things. Her testimony tightened the noose around both. Marcus Hale, lingering in the wings, clutched his tattered script, his boyish features pale but relieved. Mr. Hale, Poirot said, your sabotage of the fuse box was fear, not guilt. Yet did you see Mademoiselle Grant with Lang?
Belladonna, Lydia's contribution, under your command. Lang's sneer faltered. You'll never prove collusion. Poirot staged a final confrontation, assembling the suspects on stage under the stark glare of work lights. The scene, the intermission, 8:30 to 8:40 p.m., when the chalice was poisoned. Elena mimed her powder room exit. Lydia, her costume change. Hale grabbing a prop. Lang tampering. Poirot watched, his mind mapping the timeline. Arsenic, swift and lethal, was Lang's. Belladonna, slower, was Lydia's, layered to confuse the autopsy. The letter's warning, watch her, pointed to Lydia, but its vagueness suggested another shadow. A new clue emerged. A stagehand, searching Lang's office, found a hidden ledger page detailing a second wire transfer to Lydia labeled consulting. You paid her for more than costumes, Poirot accused. Lydia collapsed, sobbing. He promised me stardom. I gave him the belladonna, but I didn't know he'd use arsenic too. Her confession clarified her role, a pawn, driven by spite and ambition, manipulated by Lang's greed. Lang, cornered, roared. She acted alone. I never touched the chalice. But the microphone reel, replayed, captured his whisper. The plan worked. Vance is gone. Lydia's response, you swore no one would know, sealed their pact. Poirot outlined the plot. Lang, facing bankruptcy, insured Vance for a fortune, doubled for onstage accidents. He poisoned the chalice with arsenic during intermission, the scratch from his ring, a careless mark. Lydia, jilted by Vance's rejection, supplied belladonna, believing it would only sicken him, ensuring Lang's payout while securing her own future. The forged note, MH, and planted vial were Lang's red herrings, deflecting blame to Hale and Elena. Elena's jealousy and Hale's ambition were perfect distractions, staged
by a mastermind. Elena, watching, gasped, "Victor, you monster!" Her voice broke, her innocence clear. Hale, exonerated, clutched his script, his role secured.
Stark relief on the stage. Elena sank into a seat, her pearls scattered, her grief genuine. Hale, relieved, prepared for the role he'd inherit. Poirot stood alone, his cane steady. "The guilty unravel," he said, his voice echoing. But a final twist loomed. A stagehand, searching the prop room, found a second microphone hidden in the wings, its reel capturing a faint whisper. "Lang thinks he's safe, but I know." Whose voice? Not Lydia's, not Elena's. The chapter closed with Poirot's gaze on the empty stage, the rain pounding the roof. The letter, the poisons, the glove, they pointed to Lang and Lydia. But the second microphone hinted at another watcher, a shadow in the wings. "The truth is near," Poirot murmured, "but the curtain has not yet fallen." The theater, a house of deception, held one last secret, its revelation poised to strike. Chapter 10. The Final Curtain. The Times Square Theater, its opulent facade battered by the relentless rain of a 1935 Manhattan night, stood as a silent witness to a drama far darker than any staged within its walls. The auditorium, stripped of its glittering crowds, echoed with the faint hum of police activity. The velvet seats now a mute jury for the unraveling of a murderous plot. The stage, marked by the ghostly chalk outline of Reginald Vance's poisoned collapse, pulsed with the weight of truth revealed. Hercule Poirot, his diminutive frame a beacon of clarity amidst the chaos, stood center stage, his silver-handled cane steady as his green eyes swept over the assembled suspects. The torn letter accusing Victor Lang of fraud, the arsenic-stained glove, Lydia Grant's confession of supplying belladonna, and the mysterious second microphone whispering of another watcher, had brought the investigation to its climax. "The theater," Poirot intoned, his voice carrying the weight of inevitability, "is a stage for illusion. But truth, mes amis, it shines through the shadows." Inspector Harlan, his face carved with exhaustion, clutched the second microphone's reel. Its faint whisper, "Lang thinks he's safe, but I—"
Lydia Grant, her auburn curls disheveled, clutched a handkerchief, her defiance shattered by her confession. Marcus Hale, his boyish features pale but relieved, held his tattered script, exonerated but shaken. Victor Lang, cuffed and sweating, glared defiantly, his signet ring glinting, the mark of his guilt etched on the chalice. "Mes amis," Poirot declared, his voice a velvet blade. "The puzzle completes. The chalice of fate, it was no mere prop, it was the instrument of a calculated murder." He outlined the plot with surgical precision. Victor Lang, drowning in debt, had insured Reginald Vance for a fortune, doubled for an onstage accident. The ledger, found in his office, detailed embezzlement, ticket sales siphoned, debts hidden. Vance, discovering the fraud, threatened to expose Lang to investors, as confirmed by the torn letter. "Lang's embezzling. I'll tell after the show." Lang, desperate to silence him, poisoned the chalice with arsenic during the intermission, his signet ring leaving a telltale scratch. Lydia Grant, jilted by Vance's rejection and humiliated by his mockery, supplied belladonna, believing it would only sicken him, securing her a starring role in Lang's next venture. The forged note, M.H., and planted arsenic vial were Lang's red herrings. Deflecting blame to Hale and Elena, the microphone reel captured their collusion. The plan worked. Vance is gone. Lang had whispered, with Lydia's reply, "You swore no one would know." Poirot turned to Lydia, her sobs echoing in the silent auditorium. "Mademoiselle Grant, your spite was Lang's tool. You supplied the belladonna, yes?" Lydia's voice broke. "I thought it would just make him ill." Lang promised me stardom. I didn't know he'd use arsenic. Her confession, paired with the wire transfer, Lang to Lydia, disguised as rehearsal fees, sealed her role as accomplice. Harlan's team confirmed the belladonna purchase, traced through Lang's associate to Lydia's account. A clumsy attempt to hide collusion. Lang, cuffed and raging, lunged forward, his florid face purple. "You've got nothing solid, Poirot." Lydia acted alone.
"Murder?" Poirot's gaze softened. "Madame Vance, your silence was foolish, but your heart is pure. You are no killer." Marcus Hale, exonerated, stood silent, his ambition no match for Lang's greed. "Mr. Hale," Poirot said, "your sabotage of the fuse box was fear, not guilt. You inherit the role, but at what cost?" Hale nodded, his script trembling. "I just wanted to act," he whispered. His alibi, solidified by the orchestra pit's usher, cleared him fully. But the second microphone's whisper, "Lang thinks he's safe, but I know," gnawed at Poirot. The voice, faint and distorted, was neither Lydia's nor Elena's. He replayed the reel, his grey cells racing. "A watcher in the wings," he murmured. "Someone who knew of Lang's plan, but did not act." Harlan's team traced the microphone's placement. Hidden in a prop curtain, wired during rehearsals. A stagehand, Tommy, admitted to seeing a shadowy figure near the curtain days prior, but couldn't identify them. "Looked like a crew member," he said, "but they moved fast." Poirot's mind flashed to the theatre's staff. The prop master, Jenkins, had sworn the chalice was clean, but his nervous demeanor during questioning lingered. "Monsieur Jenkins," Poirot called, summoning the grizzled veteran to the stage. Jenkins, his hands calloused from years of stage work, shuffled forward, eyes darting. "You prepared the chalice, yes?" Poirot asked. Jenkins nodded. "Just water, sealed jug, I swear it." But Poirot's gaze was unrelenting. "And you heard nothing of Lang's plans? The letter? The poisons?" Jenkins paled. "I overheard Lang and Lydia talking about fixing Vance. I thought it was just talk." The whisper's voice matched Jenkins' timbre, a low rasp. Poirot pressed. "You knew, monsieur, and placed the microphone to expose them, no?" Jenkins broke, his voice trembling. "I didn't want to get involved. I heard Lang planning, saw him with the chalice. I rigged the microphone to catch him, but I couldn't stop it." His confession was no surprise to Poirot.
Had sealed the case. Its whisper, the final note in a symphony of deceit. As officers cleared the theater, Times Square's lights twinkled outside, a stark contrast to the gloom within. Poirot descended the stage, his steps measured, his mind at peace. The curtain had fallen on deception, the truth laid bare. Yet a final image lingered, the chalice gleaming under the ghost light, a symbol of fate fulfilled. The chapter closed with Poirot stepping into the rain, his hat tilted against the drizzle. "Justice it is served," he murmured, his voice lost in the city's hum. The theater, a house of secrets, stood silent, its drama resolved, its ghosts at rest.